Afternoon, everyone.
Got it. Thanks.
Thank you, Paul. Good afternoon, everyone, and another welcome to the Pinelands Commission, our virtual local officials seminar. My name is Charles Horner, and I'm the Director of Regulatory Programs with the Pinelands Commission. This afternoon, we're going to spend a few minutes trying to go through some of the highlights of the different regulations that govern land development in the Pinelands area, and also some of the tools that are available to assist interested parties with answering some of their questions on our website. We've made a lot of progress with that over the last few years. I just have a couple opening comments before I introduce Ernest Dieman and April Field of the Regulatory Programs Office to proceed with the presentation. I just wanted to note that most development in all or parts of the 53 municipalities that make up the Pinelands area do in fact require application to the Pinelands Commission. And what constitutes development, as Susan Grogan had mentioned a few moments ago, it just varies widely. Things that an individual would assume constitute development, like large commercial and residential development projects, of course require application to the Pinelands Commission. But there are other activities, such as communication towers, road improvements, utility extensions, water and sewer, and natural gas, and even the development of one single family dwelling. So many activities in the Pinelands constitute development and require application to the Pinelands Commission. The regulatory program staff reviews those applications based upon the rules that are laid out in what's called the Pinelands Comprehensive Management Plan. The regulatory program staff has 8 staff members that are reviewing the applications in those 53 municipalities. And my one overarching comment that I would like to leave everyone with, which I think is very important, is we recognize we're not perfect in our review of applications, and sometimes we stumble. Those stumbles can be based on time or on the time factors that we're reviewing. And then I would encourage all local officials, when you have questions about what's happening on an application or other issues, feel free to call our office. We're always willing to try to answer the questions and give you an update on the status of an application or the regulations that impact that application. And with that, it's my pleasure to ask Ernest Dieman, who is a supervising environmental specialist with the commission staff, if he would give his half of the presentation, followed by April Field, who is the chief permit administrator for the regulatory program staff. Ernest?
Thank you, Chuck. Good afternoon, everyone. As Chuck just mentioned, what I'm going to do is really quickly go over a little bit what the regulatory programs department does and how we handle those activities that do and sometimes don't require an application to commission. What we do, of course, is we regulate, as Chuck mentioned, all development within the Pinelands area. That's that area that Paul explained earlier, encompassing the 7 counties and multiple municipalities. I won't read everything as verbatim that's on a slide, but I'll go over most of it. One thing to note is, regardless of whether an application to commission is required or not, development must always be consistent with the Pinelands Comprehensive Management Plan. And usually that takes into account those activities that don't require an application to commission, which are considered exempt, such as the construction of a barn accessory to a single family dwelling. Even though it doesn't require an application to commission, it still must be consistent with our standards. And these are some of those exemptions. They can be found in our regulations, actually in the very beginning under 4.1 in the CMP. What we've done here is list a couple of the common ones, and bear with me while I change my view so I can see everything. So they include, as I mentioned, the construction of an accessory structure to a single family dwelling, such as a barn or garage or shed, the clearing of less than 1,500 square feet on a parcel. We also have a new one, the change of one non-residential use to another non-residential use provided that A, it's served by sewer, and there's no additional development proposed. Now that, really includes just about anything. So unfortunately, if somebody needs to expand their parking lot for that change of use, then that does trigger an application to commission. But provided there's no development proposed, that does not have to come before the commission. And finally, the improvement expansion of a structure or any use associated with an agricultural or horticultural purpose also does not require an application. This is showing Galloway Township. You've seen a couple of these maps already. This is showing the different management areas that are found in Galloway Township, which includes just about all of them. In addition, you can see how the management areas also are overlaid by municipal zoning districts. So not only does the commission review, of course, what's permitted in our management areas, we also take into account what may or may not be permitted in a municipal zoning district. That can go as far as in some municipal zoning districts, there's a certain density that dwellings are permitted per acre. If somebody wants to exceed that, then we get into processes under the Pinelands Development Credit Program. So these are all things that the staff has to take into account when we receive an application, how it relates to not only the Pinelands management area, but also your municipal zoning districts. These next few slides go over some of the important environmental standards and application processes that we review and things that can affect development applications. The first slide you see here is one regarding wetland and wetland buffers. Now the commission, the CMP, prohibits most development in wetland and wetland buffers. And those buffers can be up to 300 feet. For certain development such as septic system, they're always 300 feet. In other instances, there's what's called a buffer delineation model that's available to determine if a buffer reduction of less than 300 feet is appropriate for the development that's proposed. And then we do permit certain development, in this case, such as linear development, roads, sewer mains, water mains, are permitted in wetland buffers, provided certain conditions are met that demonstrate that they can't avoid those areas. You saw a little bit about this earlier in Paul's description. One of the most important things that we do is also to protect threatened endangered species. Now that's handled in two different ways. For plants, for threatened endangered plants, we actually protect a local population. So if there's a local population of teeny plant, a project has to be designed to avoid impacts to that local population. For animals, it's slightly different. You're not looking at the local population, but what you're looking at is protecting the habitat that's critical to survival of a local population. So again, the same situation occurs. If a project is determined, they do a study and they found a teeny animal species. Can the project be designed to protect habitats that's critical survival of that local population? For those areas that aren't served by sanitary sewer and have to be utilized a septic system, there are certain standards that apply, whether you're residential or non-residential. As I mentioned earlier, a septic system always has to be located 300 feet from wetlands. It also has to be located in an area that has what's called 5 feet to the seasonal high water table from the existing ground surface. I don't know if you can remember back to an earlier slide at this presentation, but you saw one of the staff members doing a soil boring to document whether that site could meet that 5-foot separation from the seasonal high water table to the ground surface for a septic system. Residential development requires at least 3.2 acres to be served by a conventional septic system. The commission regulations do permit septic systems on lots less than 3.2 acres down to 1 acre, but they have to utilize an approved alternate design wastewater treatment system that's been approved by the commission, again, on lots of at least between 1 acre and 3.2 acres. And then finally, for non-residential development, the use has to be on a parcel that has sufficient size to meet the groundwater quality standards based on wastewater flows from the proposed use. And specifically, we determine wastewater flows based upon guidance from the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection, specifically NJAC 7:9A. That provides you with the flows for commercial and non-residential development based upon square footage or based upon number of employees and other items. Stormwater management. We often get the question, why is stormwater required to be retained in the Pinelands and not elsewhere? Well, in the Pinelands, as you learned earlier, we do rely heavily on our groundwater for not only our residents, but for habitat and ecological reasons. In order to provide that that stormwater that falls on a site that's been developed has a chance to be recharged back into the groundwater, we do require stormwater facilities. So for major development, now major development in the Pinelands can be things such as development exceeding 5,000 square feet of clearing and land disturbance, or 5 or more lots or units, residential units. They have to provide calculations to commission. One of those calculations require that they reduce the stormwater runoff rate from the parcel from pre to post development conditions. They also have to meet what we call stormwater retention and infiltration requirement, which is they have to hold this volume of stormwater runoff from a typical 10-year storm before any overflow from that basin or facility is permitted. And finally, stormwater facilities have to be sited in suitable soils to ensure that they're going to function and infiltrate that stormwater. The next few slides go over the differences between private development applications and publics. There's actually two different processes for private and public applications. This slide for private applications indicates that an application is submitted to the commission. That information is reviewed, and upon completion of the information, and it demonstrates that the application is consistent with our rules, the staff issues a certificate of filing. That certificate of filing is not a permit or approval, but it is the document needed for the applicant to go to the municipality and county to receive any necessary permits and approvals. And then finally, once an applicant receives a permit or approval from a county or a municipality, those do need to be submitted back to the commission's office for our review and issuance of a letter to allow those permits and approvals to take effect. Now, for public development, there's a very different process. The beginning is the same. An application is submitted to the office. Upon receipt of a complete application, that application is scheduled for what we call final public comment at the next available commission meeting. And as mentioned earlier, they typically meet once a month. That meeting occurs, and there's either public comment or isn't. After which, the commission staff prepares a report containing a recommendation on the application. Provided everything's consistent, the staff would recommend the approval of the public development application. At the very next commission meeting, the commission takes action on that application. I'm not sure if April wanted to jump in at this section of the slides.
Yes, I will. Thank you, Ernie. Hi, everyone. I'm April Field, the Chief Permit Administrator here at the Regulatory Programs Department. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about our violations here at the Commission. Most of the CMP standards, as well as the application processes Ernie just spoke about, are not only within the CMP, but they are also located within your local land use ordinances. Therefore, most violations of the CMP or our rules are also violations of the local land use ordinance. That's important to note because the Pinelands Commission has all of these wonderful rules, but we have no direct enforcement authority, meaning we do not have the ability to levy fines for violations of our rules. Therefore, what we typically do, and we've relied heavily upon over the years, is coordinating with our local municipalities to ensure that rules are upheld and pursuing any violations of those rules. To do so, we typically coordinate with local zoning officers, construction code officials, or code enforcement officials. We can write letters of support in response to violation notices issued by a municipality. We can provide expert testimony in municipal court. There's a multitude of things we have done to assist municipalities in pursuing violations, and that's worked well in the past. We do have the ability in some very egregious matters to ask for assistance of either the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection or the DAG's office. But because of the time and resources spent in pursuing those matters, we save that for very egregious matters. Types of violations that we typically deal with. Lots of times we're dealing with vegetation clearing, particularly clearing within wetlands or those buffers that Ernie just mentioned. We also deal a lot with cases where people have developed properties without applying to the commission. Such examples of that would be paving a dirt area to establish a parking lot, expanding a commercial use without application, those sorts of things. Next slide, please. I'm going to go over some helpful tools that we have on our website just to make sure that, I know our website's very complicated, but there's lots of really great tools on there that I think that municipal officials could use with regard to application review, as well as you could point out to the general public when you have people asking questions regarding Pinelands development. So our first page here is our application forms page. This can be reached if you look at our website. There's a bar on the top. You click on applications and then you click on the forms tab. This page can be used to access 3 different types of application forms we have at the commission. Our development application form, which is our most popular, that's at the top, followed by our off-road vehicle events application, and an application for a letter of interpretation or an LOI for Pinelands development credits, or people call them PDCs. All of these application forms are in PDF format. They're fillable. You can complete them clearly, save them, and then you can email them to the commission digitally. I'll go over that process a little bit later. Next page I want to point out is our guidelines and tools page. This can be accessed by clicking again on the applications tab at the top of the screen, followed by the guidance tab. On this page, we have a bunch of forms that we typically require as part of different applications. And we also have helpful forms that can be used to guide applicants and the general public with regard to our processes. Some of the things that I think you as municipal officials may find helpful would be our application exemptions form. And I believe once we make these slides active on our website, you'll be able to click on some of these links to access these links directly using these slides. This application exemptions guidance document has a very more concise, clear list of all of our application exemptions that Ernie touched on earlier, and as well as examples. I think this could be very helpful to you as municipal officials when trying to determine whether development requires application to the commission. You can also provide it to the general public when they're trying to determine whether or not development requires application to the commission. Another form that we have here on this page is called our local approval checklist. This checklist is something that we typically include once we issue a certificate of filing. That's the document we issue once an application is complete with the commission. This checklist provides guidance to applicants to help them make sure they submit the appropriate permits and approvals to us, and what other information would be required to be submitted with those permits and approvals so that we can sign off on those permits and approvals. For example, if I'm submitting a subdivision approval from a township planning board, I may need to submit a copy of the approved subdivision plan approved by the township. So that it goes over those sorts of items. Other thing that we have here on this page is what we call our public development and waiver deadlines. This highlights, every year we update this, and this goes over commission meeting dates and the dates by which certain things need to be submitted in order to be heard at certain commission meeting dates, and it also goes over when public comment will be required for those projects as well. There's lots of other forms on here. I could spend hours talking about them all. The other things I just want to highlight, there are sample affidavits, sample deed restrictions, and lots of sample public notices on here as well. I encourage you and the public to look throughout this page and see what other forms we have on our website. There's lots of stuff here. The next page I want to go over is our fee calculator. This you can access by clicking on applications and then fees, and then there's another link for our fee calculator. When reviewing applications, all applications require an application fee. Application fees are based on the type of development being proposed. For example, commercial development is based on the number of units or lots, whereas non-residential development can be based on construction costs. So this calculator is here for the public or to use when trying to determine what application fee is required to submit with their application. This is particularly helpful when you have a mixed-use application, something that's proposing maybe both residential and commercial development. This way you could calculate the fee based on the different fees required and come up with a total fee for the application. Right now, all of our application fees are required to be submitted via paper check in the mail. Eventually, we are working on a process by which we'll accept application fees online. We're not there yet, but hopefully soon. Okay, our next page is our application status page. You can reach that by clicking on applications at the top of the screen, followed by status reports. We have 3 different status reports here. 2 status reports are our public development and waiver reports. These are reports that are run every day that will update you on the status of any public development or waiver applications that are pending before the commission. This will update you on the status of those applications and whether the public comment period is open or closed. This allows the public the opportunity to comment on those applications and to keep track of where they are in the process. The other application status report we have is what we call our development application status report. This status report is updated weekly. It provides a 2-week update or summary of all of the applications pending before the commission. This includes all private, public, all sorts of different development applications. It typically gives updates on all of the different information that has both been received by the commission and we have sent. So it will give you things, dates that information was received and dates where we responded to that information. And then our very last, but but best tool and newest tool on our website is called our interactive map. You can reach this map by clicking on our home page. At the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, you will see a globe-shaped icon, and you can click on that to get to our interactive map. We recently developed this map, and it's still work in progress. We're perfecting it every day. This map allows you to do research on a property in the Pinelands. As part of that research, you can search by either address or block and lot. You can select multiple block and lots. You can look at the management area that your property is located in. You can find out the municipal zoning district. You can even click on that zoning district. It's a little bit tough to find, but you can click on that zoning district, and there are links to the individual ordinance citations to get to the local ordinance. We have property ownership data, as well as the approximate location of Pinelands wetlands and the 300-foot buffer to wetlands. I want to make note that those Pinelands wetlands are especially helpful. It's information that people always call us asking, is my property located in wetlands or in wetland buffers? I want to make a note that these maps are to be used only as a guide, and that the only way to know for sure where wetlands or buffers are is to do a site inspection as part of an application. But this is a great resource to use as a preliminary research to determine whether or not proposed development would be feasible on a particular parcel. I use this map all the time for my own reviews, and I also point it out to applicants all the time. Particularly, we get a lot of calls from developers and or realtors that are looking to locate properties where they can build, and they find this map incredibly helpful to do preliminary research. Like Chuck said earlier, we welcome all questions and assistance from local officials, and we, with regard to any kind of development in the Pinelands, if you ever have any questions, please do not hesitate to call us or contact us via email. Our offices are closed to the public right now. We are requiring that everybody submit everything digitally to us. And we're looking at some point and hoping to create an online process by which applicants can submit everything on our website, and plan to do so in the future. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much. I'm going to pull up the questions screen here and open it up to the public. As noted earlier, there's a 30-second delay between Zoom and YouTube, so it'll take a few moments. If anyone has any questions out there about the presentation you've just seen on regulatory programs, please give us a call. The number's there and the meeting ID. No calls as of yet. I'm pleased to note that we have 24 people streaming it right now, and 5 thumbs up. Okay, if you have any questions about the application review process or the presentation you've just seen, please call in.